Hi everybody, what's up? Today I'm going to be talking about my experience with the t:slim X2 insulin pump so far. So let's get right to it. As you might have seen, I made a video about my new t:slim X2 insulin pump. Well, today I'm going to be talking about what my experience has been like with this pump so far. So when most of you think t:slim X2, you might think about control IQ. So let me talk about, so basically with most things that you're trying to learn, there's a bit of a learning curve phase. Also, there was a bit of learning curve, and it'd be kind of hard to trust the pump and be like, okay, my nose is running. So at times it'd be hard for me to just kind of fully trust the pump and be like, okay, pump, do your thing. So it took a little bit for me to try and get used to that, especially since the first day that I used the t:slim X2, I just kind of let it do its thing. I did not interfere at all. And what I mean by interfere is I didn't like give myself like extra juice or extra Starburst if I saw my blood was like around like 100 or something like that. Because for example, before I went to sleep, for instance, if I would see that my blood sugar is like 100, I would like take something before I go to sleep because I'd be afraid that it would drop in the middle of the night. So I just kind of let the control IQ do its own thing. So it was around like 7 in the morning that my blood sugar went low, and I did not know this for a while. My mom actually called me because she actually follows me in the Dexcom Follow app just to check my blood sugars from time to time. So luckily she was following me because she called me and told me, Sarah, your blood sugar is low. But I had not noticed that myself because I am a deep sleeper, which is actually something I've struggled with for a bit. Like before going to sleep, I have worried about my blood sugars and whether they're going to go low or not, because I don't really hear alarms in the middle of the night, which is what makes it so scary, that I'm afraid that my blood sugar is going to drop in the middle of the night, which is why Control IQ has been such a help. At first, has been such a help now that I've gotten used to it, but before, when I just kind of let it do its own thing and I was new to Control IQ, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't trust Control IQ again because my blood sugar went low and I didn't even notice it went low. So that was a bit scary for me. Just for reference, I don't really wake up at 7 in the morning on most days. It's more like 8:30. So I was not up yet is the point. And I did not hear the alarms of my insulin pump because I'm a deep sleeper. Hopefully this might help any other type 1 diabetics who are deep sleepers because sharing this. I just think it's because I do so many things during the day. When my head hits the pillow, I just kind of fall asleep right away. But basically, that's what I got concerned about. It was like my trust in Control IQ was a bit shattered after that, and it took me a little while to try and trust Control IQ. So I've learned a bit since then, because that was literally the first day that I was using Control IQ. I had worked with my pump trainer, who I had discussed in the previous video. I talked about how she trained me over Zoom and stuff like that. So and we exchanged numbers also, and I texted her because she followed up with me anyway 3 days later asking how everything went. I told her about my experience, and she was like, it could be your basals that are a bit aggressive. So I took a look at my basals and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. So it wasn't Control IQ that failed, it was my basal settings that needed to be changed. So with that experience, my trust in the Control IQ was a little bit broken, but with new information that I had learned, it was kind of, I guess, restored in a way. So I learned more about that, and that's part of the reason why I discussed I'm a deep sleeper. So part of the reason why I was so excited about Control IQ was that I was like, okay, this will make me feel more safe about like falling asleep. As you may or may not know, the T-Slim X2 has a sleep mode, and I put in my sleep mode. Basically, the way that sleep mode works, if you didn't see my previous video, I'll kind of briefly recap it again. You put in when you'll go to sleep to when you'll wake up, so it like kind of covers the amount of time that you sleep, and it'll keep your blood sugar in a specific range. So you can, the way that I have my settings is I put it in Monday through Friday, and then I have a separate setting for Saturday and Sunday, because during the week I go to sleep earlier, and then the weekend I go to sleep later. But there are alarms on your pump should you choose. You can put it on vibrate if you wish for everybody not to hear it, because I've heard of people saying, oh my gosh, I don't want my pump to be so loud, because then everybody's gonna hear it. So you could put your settings on vibrate, but if you want to hear them, because you're like sleeping and in the middle of the night you want to know when your blood sugar is high or low or something like that, you can turn up the volume so that way you can hear it. And if you use the Dexcom app, you can also turn up your volume settings on there, so you're notified when your blood sugar is high or low. And then you also, if your blood sugar is low, for instance, it'll keep on repeating like every 5 minutes. If your blood sugar is high, for instance, it'll keep on repeating. If you okay it, chances are you're up, so then it'll stop. But until you hit that okay button, it'll keep on going. What I do too is I'll change like the alarm sounds sometimes, which you can do, because if I hear the same alarm sound, it's like alarm fatigue, then you're gonna like continue to sleep through it. But if I change the sound, then I'll hear it more. So that's a little tip for you. Also, I want to talk about exercise mode. If you go to your settings, the options, and if you go to activity, you'll see that there's an exercise mode right here. I've been walking a lot today, so I've put the exercise mode on. If you're exercising, you don't have to take as much juice. Like if your blood sugar is trending a little bit low before you're exercising, or you're afraid your blood sugar is gonna run low, and usually take juice, or like I don't know, we'll usually eat a little something before you exercise. You might not have to, because it'll keep your because exercise mode will keep your blood sugar a little bit up. I mean, it is always a good idea to eat before you exercise. If you haven't, for instance, eaten a meal yet, then you should definitely do that day, or you just ate. You don't have to necessarily have juice or something after you've already eaten. So that's why exercise mode is good, because it'll keep your blood sugar in that range after you exercise too, because after you exercise, as you know, your blood sugars could drop again. Yeah, so we've talked about Control IQ. Also, I've noticed that when I bolus, sometimes my pump will be like, oh Sarah, you might not want to bolus right now because you have insulin on board, or because your blood sugar is trending low, which is really helpful, because if it didn't, because it's trying to basically prevent you from going low. So even if I'll be having like putting in insulin for a snack or something, I might not always have the bolus depending on the direction my blood sugar is headed, and it's just helpful that the pump suggests that. Like if it sees your blood sugar is going low, it's helpful that it suggests that you may not bolus, for instance, depending on the situation. Also, I really like going through the graphs too. It's helpful to see when my blood sugar has gone low, and also when my insulin might have been suspended as well. So as you see by the red little bars, I discussed this in my previous video too, but your pump will temporarily turn off your insulin if it sees that your blood sugar is going low. So as you see here, my blood sugar was going low 2 times. So it turned off the insulin, and then my blood sugar, did it go up? Went up a little bit, and then it went back down again. because I had just corrected with juice, but I was walking, so I did not have, and because I kept on walking, I guess it did not work the first time, so that's why you see the red bar again. So it's just kind of helpful to review, to think back, to review, like, and see, like, what was going on behind this if you're, like, learning how to use the system. After a while, it's more, like, intuitive, and you're like, oh, that's why that happened. But if you're still learning, then it's helpful to kind of, like, go through it initially. And also, I've found that I don't have to correct as much for my lows with Control IQ, because as you'll see, it'll temporarily shut off your insulin, and if you overcorrect, then it might make your blood sugar go up too much. So that's because it turns off the insulin for a little while. Yeah, so that helps as well, and that's pretty much Control IQ. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I should cover about Control IQ. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions about Control IQ, you can leave comments down below. So I guess I'll talk more about the physical aspects of the pump. So I like the fact that it's pretty thin and easy to carry around. It's touchscreen. Belt clip here, you don't have to use a belt clip. I do. Sometimes it falls off, which could make, like, sites fall out, which is what you have to be careful with. My tubing was a little bit long, so I tend to tuck it in sometimes. That way it doesn't get, like, caught on door handles and stuff like that. Yeah, let's see what else. Yeah, those are pretty much, like, the physical features of my pump. Also the charging has been different. I'll have to be conscious of, like, the amount that the charge of my pump. See, like, right now it's at, like, at like 70. The feature's not very good on here. Anyway, it's not very clear when I move my pump up. Anyway, my pump is at 70% right now, so I just kind of keep checking to see, okay, when do I have to charge it next? So yeah, it's easy. It's nice to not have to, like, carry around batteries anymore, because sometimes with my batteries I'd be like, okay, how much battery life is left on my pump. It would show, like, kind of like if it was at green or yellow or red. So green would mean that you had a lot of battery. Yellow would mean that you have like a medium charge left, and then red would be like, change, like, your battery. Like, but I would never know, like, precisely how long that would be. Like, it could be anywhere from, like, 2 weeks to a month, depending on the charge of the battery. I tended to use the lithium energizer AA batteries, but sometimes it wasn't, like, a precise amount that I would with the batteries, and it was just kind of, like, a pain to, like, carry them around for, in case it just happened, because there would be cases where it'd be like, okay, just change your battery now. And whereas with the charging system, you just kind of, like, get into a routine and are like, okay, it just kind of needs charges. So for me, at least, it's easier to just charge it. And yeah, it's more simple. You have to, of course remember to charge your pump, because it's not going to work. But I just find it easier to charge it. So I talked about in the video where I showed you guys how I changed my T-Slim X2 insulin pump, about how my cartridge got locked, which was a scary experience. It hasn't happened as much anymore, but sometimes when the cartridge gets stuck. So if you see this little hole right here, sometimes I'll, like, put a coin to try to get, like, the cartridge out. Like I said, you can use, like, the little accessory that they give you to take the cartridge out, or you can use a coin to get it out as well. So that works. Sometimes if you sometimes it just works if you take it out, like, the regular way too, but if it's, like, really stuck in there for some reason, you could use a coin. Yeah, and also there was this one time also when I was filling up my insulin into this little hole right here, where the insulin did not register for some reason, because there are certain parts on this little hole that I've noticed are a bit more resistant to to when you actually like stick the needle in here and fill up your insulin. So for some reason it did not register the insulin, and you have to kind of find spots that are more like soft on so that the insulin works better. I don't know if anybody else has experienced this problem, but it's just something I've noticed that happens from time to time, and it did happen that one time where it did not register my insulin, so I had to go through the process again. But other than that, it works pretty well. And also it took a little bit of adjustment to fill up the insulin in here, because before with my Medtronic 670G, I would just kind of fill up the cannula outside of the actual I would fill up the insulin and then put it in the insulin pump. It's not something that I would put directly into the insulin pump, because basically what you do is you grab the needle and you fill it up into this hole, and there's a little pouch inside. Whereas before, I would just kind of fill it up on the outside and then put it in the inside. I don't know if that makes sense. I'll try to add a visual in here, but that took a little bit of adjustment. And also, the wire is a bit different too, because before with the Medtronic pump, I would have like a little cap on the outside of here where I just kind of screwed it on the outside. So those are more like the physical aspects. I like the pump overall. It's thin, it's easier to carry around. The control IQ was a bit of a learning curve, but then again, a lot of things have learning curves to them as well. And yeah, it's just easy. It makes dealing with diabetes more simple. Yeah, and also what's nice is I still use I like how the T-Slim includes the Dexcom G6 as well, because the sensor that I had before kind of irritated my skin a bit, because my skin's a bit sensitive to it. I would like develop rashes. Dexcom's just a bit thinner. That's what I like about it. This has been my experience pretty much with the T-Slim X2. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share the word. Bye.